Hey guys, welcome to the lab. We're back with some more exclusive content today, joined by Cheats. Mark, how you doing?
I'm good, Leon, man. I'm excited, man. Thanks for having me on again. I'm excited, bro.
No problem. So, for those who don't know, we've already filmed our design session. We're waiting for the hats to get approved / produced. So there's going to be some people that don't know you, and we'll give them a chance to kind of get to know you a little bit better. But I've sent you over a care package for some of the Negro League hats that I've created and kind of sold last week in the at the pop-up in Kansas City. So
nice.
I'd love for you to open those and kind of get your opinion on those. But before we do that, let's give the viewers a little bit of a background for you. So you have a really important platform and podcast. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, man, I love to talk about it. So I created the Black Baseball Mixtape. The Black Baseball Mixtape is a podcast and social media platform that highlights Black players in baseball at every level. So everything from little league to major leagues, every position, whether you're a vendor at the stadium to a general manager of a major league franchise. We try to highlight Black culture. We try to highlight personnel and just really give a lot of diversity to the game. I think baseball is changing. Baseball is getting a little bit more exciting. You're starting to see a little bit more flair, not just with Black players. You're starting to see it all the way across the board. Black and brown Latinos, some white players have some swag too. So we're starting to highlight that part of the game and hopefully bring that the newer generation of players playing in the game, bring them a little bit more excitement, give them a little bit more coverage. And I think that baseball is where it's at. I think there's the most opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity to bring some swag and culture in baseball, and and that's what the mixtape's all about.
I think in our unaired interview, which we're gonna release later on when your hats get a little bit closer to releasing, but you had mentioned like there's been a real lack of big Black stars from, I guess, like Barry Bonds, Griffey era. Like I think there's a real lack of coverage. I think that hurts the sport a little bit and gets like kids wanting to play. So can you talk a little bit more about the importance of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a sea change, and I think it comes and goes in waves. And what I mean by that is obviously they had massive stars in the 50s and 60s, and they had massive baseball stars, and even the 70s and the 80s. And then we got to this run, and that was kind of the golden era for a guy my age, which was Barry Bonds, Frank Thomas, Ken Griffey Jr. And I mean, we had just mega baseball stars. And then it just kind of fell off, if you will. I think the last of the Mohicans of the old wave, if you will, is like a Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter I think he just turned 50. But Derek Jeter was like the last of the just mega nationally, globally recognized baseball star. And the interesting thing about Jeter was that Jeter was like a reluctant hero. I think baseball, one of the challenges with baseball is some of our best players, whether it's a Mike Trout, you know what I mean? They just don't have the personality that some Aaron Judge is the second biggest star in the game. Let's give credit where credit is due. Shohei Ohtani is the biggest star in the game.
Yeah.
But Aaron Judge is the second biggest star in the game. He plays in New York City, and he's a very much like a Mike Trout, Workman, Derek Jeter. Like, he's even less than Jeter because at least Jeter went out. Like Jeter was out on the scene. You know what I mean? He wouldn't talk to the press per se, but he was outside. Aaron Judge doesn't even really go outside. You know what I mean?
He just has a dog.
Right. So the truth of the matter is, when you start looking at Ronald Acuna, you start looking at Ellie De La Cruz, you start looking at Mookie Betts, you start looking at some of these guys playing now, Jazz Chisholm, love them or hate them, those guys have style. Those guys want it. Those guys have an attitude that is much more of a basketball, football even global international soccer star flavor, right? And those are going to be the guys that usher in this new wave. And we're covering it over at the mixtape. I'm excited about that. And we're just giving people game, man. A lot of folks, I think, love baseball. They might have gone away from the game, but they want a reason to come back to the game. And we give them a reason to get excited about baseball.
Yeah. I'm excited about the new era too, a little bit. Like baseball has kind of loosened the grips a little bit about allowing people to be more individualistic.
Yep.
Like you're saying, more cleats being used, different color, like equipment. You see Ronald with the yellow, Jazz with the purple. The chains is getting out of control a little bit. I mean, like as a I don't know how efficient it is, but I mean, there's nothing like just seeing someone hit a home run with a big ass chain on.
I love it, man. Yeah, you're starting to see a lot more individualism. You see a lot more, and a lot of it is actually still very respectful. Like it's not, they every once in a while you might cross the line, you might have a bench clear, but that also adds a little excitement to the game. But most of it's just more of like I'm gonna milk this home run. I'm gonna give you a little stare down. I'm gonna strike you out and show some real emotion. And that's the type of stuff I think that gets the crowd up, gets people excited, builds rivalries if there's if there's rivalries to be built there. And I'm excited about the place that the game's in with the players. I'm also excited about the place with the game's in with, like you said, some of the rule changes, some of the things that make the game faster. I'm all for it. If we can have a 2-hour baseball game, I'm all for it. Like I'm excited about, keeping the game on more stolen bases. Acuna stole over 70 bases last year. I think that's the stuff, that type of speed and that type of skill, that type of stuff is what gets people excited. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, and like Ellie being at like 40 before the All-Star break is like unheard of, right? Like, we're also seeing some cross cultural stuff too. Like, Topps just released their set 2 for 2024, and we're seeing dual autograph, walk-up song artists with the player, and you're starting to see kind of intersection too. I always tell my friends like baseball's a tougher sport to get famous in because like in basketball, you can have like a LeBron James get 60% usage. You can't let Mike Trout bat 9 times in a row, even though he probably deserves.
No, but I actually think baseball is a sport where you can get it. Like baseball players aren't wearing helmets. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that if you give them the opportunity to show their personality, show their cleats, show their ice cream gloves, you know what I mean? Be able to really put your imprint on the game. I think they can be stars. Like, again, you go back, Griffey, a complete star. Backwards hat and batting practice. Barry Bonds, complete star. When Bonds and McGuire, ESPN was rerunning the 30 for 30 about McGuire and Sosa when they were just both chasing, that single season home run record. Like, you couldn't imagine how people were going crazy for that stuff.
That's true.
And there's, even like love him or hate him, like Sosa was flair personified. Like he was going out, doing the joint. Like, so I think that if we can really embrace that stuff, and it's not just the players doing it, but it's also, kind of what's happening with like the WNBA right now. Like the media and the fans and everybody's starting to like wrap their arms around Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark and the Las Vegas A's. So you're hearing more WNBA coverage leading story. So I mean, somehow we've got to get something in baseball that starts to allow everybody to embrace it, wrap their arms around it, do the right things. And I mean, doesn't help that like Shohei's hurt in the sense this year he can't pitch. You know what I mean? Shohei to LA though, massive. Like think about like I live on the East Coast, but I know just from changing teams from the Angels to the Dodgers, you talking about a massive sea change, right? So I mean, I think the game's in a good place. I do like you were saying what organizations like Topps, Nike Diamonds, MLB Fits, Bleacher. Like, I like all what they're doing, and I love what we're doing with hats. I mean, you're starting to see some really, really cool, respectful, throwbacks, homages. The hat I'm wearing is the hat they wore at the Rickwood game. I mean, you're starting to see some cool things in hats too. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think most people under 30 don't realize the importance of the home run chase, and just like being able to just watch live TV and be like, okay, we're just gonna cut to Barry Bonds' like third at bat, because
they were cutting to Mark McGwire doing batting practice at SportsCenter. SportsCenter was like, hold on, we're cutting, because Mark McGwire was hitting the ball like 500, 600 feet in batting practice. Like that's again, we've got to get to a place where there's excitement around it, the crowd's around it, but also the media's got to figure out ways to tell those stories to get people excited and involved and really embracing what's happening. And again, you need things like Shohei to the Dodgers. You need things like Aaron Judge in New York. You need things like Bryce Harper and those guys in Philly. Like, you need big cities doing big things, right?
Yeah.
A really good player on a small market team in baseball, like a good player on a really bad team in baseball, that's not going to be the same as like, the other sports. You need your big teams doing big things with big stars. And right now we're starting to see it. We're starting to see some of it.
And the good thing about baseball too is like there's so much history, like the Hall of Fame and how they tell the stories and stuff like that. Like you're wearing a Rickwood shirt, so a lot of people really got to really embrace the greatness. Unfortunately, he passed away, but like Willie Mays, right? So Willie Mays played at Rickwood, and a lot of those injustices came to light. I mean, I think about what Reggie Jackson said, and it was really chilling to kind of hear him speak about it. But it was good in the sense that, baseball's not trying to shy away from that stuff. All that history is not getting swept under the rug. But,
look, I don't know if baseball was fully prepared for Reggie's speech.
I
think Reggie was prepared for Reggie's speech.
Yeah.
But I don't think baseball was fully prepared for Reggie's speech. And I was just talking about this with some friends last night, and I remember when it was happening, when I was watching live. I was not at Rickwood. I'm still kicking myself for not going. I could have went, but I was watching live, and I was texting one of my best friends, and I remember watching it, and there's a part of me that found, like, again, masterful words, very powerful words, very like great message. There was a part of me that found so much comedy in it. And it's not because it was what he was saying was funny or what he was reflecting on was funny, but there's comedy in it because it felt so familiar. Like Reggie could have literally been at my grandmother's Thanksgiving dinner, and those would have been the same type of conversations. And so the funny part about it was not necessarily what Reggie said. The funny part was it was like the reaction for let's just call a spade, the reaction from white people watching was just like, oh my God, the 60s were so bad. And we're laughing, like, we're looking at it like, bro, like, we lived, I live in Virginia, so I grew up in the South. Like, obviously Virginia has its own challenging history with Confederacy, but it was just like, yo, he was just talking like we would talk around like my dinner table growing up. And so I found the reaction from people that were surprised that Birmingham, Alabama in 1960 was not a great place to be. I was just like, bro, but it was powerful. I'm glad Reggie got the unedited time to do it. I'm glad it was on live TV, and I'm glad he got that off, because I really think it was important for him to do the world to hear. And we were like, sometimes how something, maybe your people know something, and you assume like the world knows something, and you realize, oh snap, the world really doesn't know. Like the world needs to be reminded. And so I think it was a great reminder that 1960s Birmingham, Alabama was not a fun place to be.
You always hear like secondhand stories too of like Clemente, similar stories, like they had to wait at the bus and they couldn't eat, and then when when the teammates brought the food back, he would refuse to eat it, and stuff like that. And he really took a stand on that kind of stuff. But hearing it, like all that stuff seems so far away, I guess, because Clemente passed away so like young. It feels like that was like another world ago. But then to hear like Reggie say it and went through it, it was like, oh man, it wasn't that long ago that stuff happened.
My grandmother is 94 years old, and she's alive today. Like, nah, it won't that long ago. That's like that's one family member, you know what I mean, removed. And it is interesting because I do think this generation, young people in this generation have like Michael Jordan is old to them. Like you talk to high school kids today, they've never seen Michael Jordan play.
Yeah.
And so they only seen Kobe and LeBron. And so you're just sitting there, and I'm not the old man get off my lawn type thing, but I do think that there is a little bit of the younger generation currently now that really is like, if I didn't see it, it really didn't happen, right? Like Michael Jordan YouTube clips might as well be, Dr. J YouTube clips, which might as well be Wilt Chamberlain YouTube clips, and they're like, nah, man, like it's different. But yeah, that's where it is. Like, and that's why baseball is so, I think, special, because it is hard to compare eras in other sports. It's really hard to compare what like this Golden State Warriors team with, Draymond and Seth and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, how they would do against the 90s Bulls, right? Very impossible. Two different games almost. Yeah. But like Ken Griffey Jr. sat in the batter's box, and you look at Willie Mays sit in the batter's box, and you look at Hank Aaron sit in the batter's box, and it looks almost the same. Like the game looks the same, Fair. And so I think that's why baseball is a little bit more special. Like a great catch that Griffey made, there's, I don't know how many percentage, but not that many can still make those catches as great as Griffey. You know what I mean? And it's a little bit easier to compare.
Fair enough. So I just got back from Kansas City, like I mentioned. So Kicks and Couture was a show that we went to. It was like a joint kind of charity event put on through Operation Breakthrough. So like that's one of the charities that helps underprivileged kids play sports and stuff like that. So it was really important for us to go to that, but also bring some local pieces. And that's also the home of the Negro League Museum, obviously. So we had to bring some pieces over. I knew you weren't going to be able to make it, so I made sure some of the pieces got to you. So I sent them over.
Got them.
And so let's talk about it. So I make it really a big point for me to, at least when I'm making hats, to try to tell some history behind them and try to be accurate to the jerseys. Not sometimes with the Negro League stuff, like you're going to get lost because a lot of those pictures are going to be black and white, but I try to do my best to emulate what's available. So let's take a look at what I sent you.
All right, I got them right here. So look, I got the box right here.
Nice.
Look, I got to take out the box. I got to take out the bag.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited, but they are, let me just be the first to take a look. So shout out everything. Let's look at the very first one. Look at this. This is beautiful. Homestead Grays. Let's see here. You tell me what you did with this, but I do think when you say you wanted to try to keep the colors true, the colors on the Homestead Grays is true, and the energy behind it is what's so exciting about it right now from a baseball perspective, not just a hat perspective. From the baseball perspective, is Josh Gibson.
Yeah.
And so now when you're looking at Josh Gibson with the integration of Negro League stats in the Major League database, Josh Gibson leads in just about every hitting category. He's a leading hitter in baseball now. And everybody got a little bit of attention when they integrated the stats. But Josh Gibson was the guy that overtook Ty Cobb as, the single season record holder for like the best hitter for average. And it was just an amazing feat. So do you talk me through what you did with the hat, and I'm going to show it, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about what I think of it.
Yeah. So for me, people always call Josh Gibson the Black Babe Ruth. Bob Kendrick flips it and tells you that you should call Babe Ruth the white Josh Gibson.
Yes.
So that really stood out to me. And like the best player that most people unfortunately don't know about needed a hat. So I was lucky that it kind of came out at the time of the integration. Finally, I guess they were doing the research to make sure they got the numbers right. I mean, I've seen home run totals from 100 to 900.
I think it was
between
880 is what
Yeah.
people wanted. You can't verify 880. So
Yeah.
all the stats that Josh Gibson got, he did not get the home run stat. Let me quickly, before I don't want to cut you off, but quickly.
No,
First in batting average all time now, 372. First in slugging career all time, 718. First in OPS career all time. First in batting average for a season, 466. First in slugging for a season and OPS for a season. So those are 6 major records now that Josh Gibson holds.
Yeah. So I just wanted something simple, something he would have wore. A lot of times the Negro League hats themselves didn't have a lot of logos or didn't have whatever. So I just did a simple jersey flip to the hat. Tried to put a cool side patch to it and make it really wearable. So that's the white. What do we call him? So he's the black Babe Ruth, but it's the white Josh Gibson.
So I'll tell you what I really do love. I love the two-tone, right? Because everybody knows that the gray and the navy was the Homestead Grays colors. One thing, again, that people don't fully understand is that the Grays call 2 cities home. So when they say the Homestead Grays, you're talking about right outside of like Pittsburgh, right? But they also were basically they were called like the Homestead DC Grays because Washington DC also called the Homestead Grays home for half the season, for multiple seasons. So they played a lot of their home games in DC. They had 2 adopted cities, Josh Gibson, Buck Leonard, Thunder Twins, they called them. And it was, and I love the way that we did the two-tone. I love the raised lettering here, and the green undervisor I think is just beautiful. So I love this hat. I really think that it's a special one. So I'm a big fan of this one.
Thank you.
Let's see what we have here, and we're gonna also now look at this one. Oh look, Pittsburgh Crawfords, two-toned again. And then let's take a really good look at this. I was just at the East-West Classic for Memorial Day at the Hall of Fame game. They reintroduced the East-West Classic All-Star game with basically retired players, Curtis Granderson, Ryan Howard, CC Sabathia. But it was in spirit of this game. This is a beautiful patch. I believe that's Comiskey Park, right? Pittsburgh Crawfords, two-toned. Very true to the uniform jersey flip again. Leon, you tell me about this one.
Well, Satchel Paige was the inspo for this hat. I believe he was I think he was like the 2nd or 3rd MVP of the East-West Classic. I'm going to have to look it up. But that was pretty much my inspo. I mean, one of the greatest greats, pitched until he was
well into his 50s.
Geriatric. Yeah.
Like there was so interesting thing about Satchel is that you could have basically picked any Negro League team, right?
Yeah.
And Satchel Paige, because Satchel Paige was really a mercenary. He was really a mercenary. He would go where the money would go, and he generated more money than any Negro League player. And he would pitch sometimes 2-3 times in the same day. Satchel had a habit of pitching like the first 3 innings and then sitting down and letting the other guys come in, but because he was the draw. So he could play a doubleheader in the afternoon and then go drive across and pitch a night game. He had his own car. He negotiated his own car. So he could actually get to games a little bit more mobile. I'm reading a book now where Satchel Paige actually went. Where did he go? Was it the Dominican? He played for a dictator, and so it's called The Dictator and the Pitcher. And they actually recruited him, and he recruited other players. I want to say to go down to the Dominican and play for a dictator. I'll have to make sure I got the facts right, but it's The Dictator and the Pitcher. It's an amazing book. Satchel Paige is by far the biggest single star of the Negro Leagues. So when you look at Negro League stars, not Major League Baseball stars, when you look at Negro League stars, you're talking about Josh Gibson, you're talking about Satchel Paige, you're talking about those guys because, you know, Jackie and Monty Irvin, all those guys went to MLB. Satch went to MLB, but he was never the same star because he was so old than he was in the Negro Leagues. So this is a beautiful, beautiful hat. Again, one of the best side patches. I don't think, you know how some side patches you really can overuse, you can overwork. I don't think you can overwork this side patch because it's beautiful. And I really love what you did here with the Pittsburgh Crawfords jersey flip. This is two-tone. Both of these together, just beautiful works of art, man. I really love what you did here.
Thank you.
Let's see here. On this one, now I got two in here that are not Negro League hats. So you're going to have to talk me through. This one you sent me was the white and black socks with the 1989 All-Star Game side patch and then a Comiskey Park Chicago Sox backing, which is different. So talk me to this one. Gray undervisor, black button at the top. This is a homage to when did the Sox change their unis and go with the full white and black? There was just a documentary that was released about this.
Early 90s, I think.
And it changed culture. This is when they went to the white and black, and they went to the white and black because in the documentary it said the LA Kings had gone to the white and black, and they were just selling like crazy. And then when the Sox went to the white and black and those Frank Thomas years, it was the hottest cultural hat. Like it for a little while, it overtook the Yankee hat, which is hard to do.
Yeah. So that one kind of marks like Michael Jordan moving from basketball to baseball. So the patch itself is made to look like an Upper Deck logo. And then the back, Comiskey's is where they played. But there was a time in which he was playing baseball, and I guess it was like Ken Griffey was around. I think it was an All-Star game, if I'm not mistaken. But Michael actually stops and asks. He cuts the line of people getting autographs and asks Ken Griffey to autograph his bat. And on his jersey, you can see an Upper Deck logo. So that's why he used that 1989 logo, because it's made to look like an Upper Deck logo. And it was kind of just to mark that kind of crossover between two stars, Michael Jordan and Ken Griffey, just two guys at their peak, you know, sharing a love for baseball. So that's kind of what that hat is all about.
And Michael Jordan, a very unsung, most people, because he was such a great basketball player, and obviously it was an experiment. Him playing baseball was such an experiment. But they were talking about it at Rickwood. They were talking about it on the stand. I think it was Jeter and Griffey and some of those guys were talking about it. And they were like, hey, like Michael Jordan wasn't a bad baseball player. And Michael Jordan actually really dedicated himself to playing baseball or at a younger age. At the age Mike was at, he had already won 3 NBA championships. They were like, he was in his 30s. It was not a good look at that time, but he wind up, they were like, if he had dedicated himself at a young age, Jordan could have been a pretty stellar baseball player. So I like what you did there. This is the last one that I got to show. This is I think this is a beautiful hat. And I know we had talked on previously, we had talked about both of our kind of really, really strong appreciation for Jazz and Jazz Chisholm. And this is a hat that I know hopefully we'll be able to get to him when I'm down in Texas coming up soon. But talk to me through this one. Pink undervisor. Look at this. You just did a lot of intricate work on this one.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of hook and pay homage to the cover of last year's MLB The Show. I mean, this is a video game that, you know, people play competitively. There's kids playing and you know, kind of learning the appreciation for baseball. Jazz wasn't so much like a really conventional pick. You know, he wasn't a superstar, but, you know, he kind of marches to the beat of his own drum. So I wanted to hook kind of his cover that they used last year for MLB The Show and kind of just capture that flair. That's the exact script he's wearing on the cover of it, and just try to capture all the different stuff, you know, the blue hair, the crazy purples that he uses for the equipment, and even the different pinks and stuff like that. So This is the Jazz Chisholm.
So Jazz, believe it or not, and you would be very surprised, but I do think Jazz is the first Bahamian-born All-Star. And
Mhm.
so when the story has it, Jazz told this story a couple times. He had told MLB The Show that if he was the first Bahamian-born All-Star, he's got to get on the cover. And he became an all-star, and they were like, look, his people were talking to other people, and he was like, we got to get him on the cover. And so you're right, it was an unconventional choice because by far Jazz, nobody would have said Jazz is probably the top 10 in the game. But when it came to an influence on young people, when it came to what you were talking about, the chains, the cleats, the ice cream gloves, the cultural impact, and being a Bohemian-born megastar, which he is, this was a great choice. And the way that you blended the cover art, which I do have that game, but I don't have it right in front of me. The way you blended the cover art and made this just a beautiful piece of work. And I actually do enjoy kind of how you put the detail into the side patch as well, because that script from the cover to the script to the side patch, you can kind of see the synergy there. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. So that's just a little, I guess, sampling right now.
Yep.
I'd love to, send you more hats and talk baseball and talk stories and just, kind of get the storytelling out, because I have a little bit of a problem sometimes. I don't get to enjoy the stuff we get to make and stuff I do, and it's always on to the next one, on to the next one. I mean,
now you send it to me and I'll enjoy it, my man.
Yeah.
You send it to me and we'll enjoy it, because
Yeah.
these are worth being highlighted and talking the history, right? The Pittsburgh Crawfords and the Homestead Grays were huge rivals. Huge rivals. So that's another whole story we didn't even get into between the two hats. And Josh Gibson is one of the main reasons they're huge rivals, because the two owners of those teams had a lot of money and they were actually bidding for the services of Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson. And those guys were just ping-ponging between teams. They really were. And so it made the rivalry even more real. So, Homestead Grays, Pittsburgh Crawfords, that type of history and the teams and the cultural impact and those types of things, those players, it's awesome. And you mentioned MLB The Show when we were talking about the Miami hat just now, but MLB The Show plays a really pivotal role today in educating these kids, especially with storylines of the Negro Leagues and all the things that they've been doing. My son, who's 9, knows more about the Negro Leagues than I ever did at 9 because of MLB The Show.
Yeah, even for me to get reintroduced to it last year, they focused heavily on the Monarchs last year, and then this year it's a little bit different.
Yep.
So I'm glad that it's not something that's being force fed through and kind of done throughout, but like now you get a real good appreciation on how those players played and who they were. You hear all kind of crazy responses to some of the stats being held up equivalent, and some of the Hall of Famers being recognized now, but the talent and skill is unquestionable to me, at least.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'm glad today's youth is exposed to that and kind of really get to know those stars.
Absolutely. I think the line I heard that was just really brought it home for me was, if somebody was talking about the Gibson stats, and they were like, well, Gibson never faced major league pitching, Negro League pitching, overall, they were saying wasn't as good. And so the funny part was, somebody said, how many of Babe Ruth's like 714 home runs did he hit off Satchel Paige?
Yeah,
and it's like, none, because they were like, so all of the stats that they were kind of revering at the time, those guys never played against black players in games that they counted the stats for. And so, like, it's a two-way street. And I really think that Major League Baseball did a good job. They did a thorough job. And these guys, Bob Kendrick said it best, it's not about recognition. These guys knew how good they were. It's just about doing the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a line that he says in the game, I think, like, because he talked about, John Donaldson being credited with, like, I think the slider, I think.
Yep.
Babe Ruth never faced a slider. Like, come on, man. Like, what are we talking about? The two batting stances they had was like choke up on the bat or don't choke up on the bat. Like, that was like, that was
so true.
The extent of it, right? So
that's awesome.
Nah, but appreciate your time. I can't wait for the stuff that we cooked up to finally arrive. There's been some approval stuff that we're not going to talk about too much on the air, but we'll deal with that after. But until next time, I guess. This is
all right, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah, man. Love everything you do. Anytime, my brother. I appreciate you.
All right. Where can people find your work?
Oh, Black Baseball Mixtape on everything. Black Baseball Mixtape on Instagram. Blog, website. It'll be Twitter. Just look it up, man. It's all there.
Yeah. Make sure you guys follow Cheats. And until next time, we out here.
See you.
Peace.